Okay, so get ready because we are diving headfirst into some seriously heavy stuff. Today, we're talking about Jack Smith's case against Trump and the 2020 election.
You know, it's interesting. Everyone's been dissecting the moral implications of what went down, but Smith's case really hinges on the legal argument that this was a calculated attack on our democracy.
Right. And he just dropped this like 165-page document outlining his case. It reads like a legal thriller, honestly.
That.
It is dense, but the core argument is basically that Trump wasn't acting as president during this time, but as a candidate desperate to hold on to power. So I guess my question is, why is that distinction so important legally speaking?
Well, because it removes the kind of blanket protection that a sitting president might usually have. Smith is saying these weren't the actions of a president serving the nation. These were the actions of a candidate, purely motivated by self-preservation, which makes them criminal.
And he uses some pretty wild details to back that up. Like, remember all those explosive tweets Trump was firing off?
Oh, yeah.
Prosecutors are basically saying those weren't just impulsive rants. They were calculated moves to rile up his base and mess with the election, especially the ones about Mike Pence.
Yeah, that's a bold strategy. They're basically saying those tweets weren't official presidential communication. They were the desperate cries of a candidate willing to burn it all down to win.
It's mind-blowing. And then there's that quote from a witness who claims Trump told his family on Marine One, "It doesn't matter if you won or lost the election, you still have to fight like hell." Like, come on, is that really something you'd say if you were genuinely conceding defeat?
Absolutely not. If it's true, I mean, it speaks volumes about his mindset after the election. He just refused to accept the outcome. That feeds directly into this narrative of personal ambition that Smith is building, you know.
And speaking of personal, the pressure on Pence adds a whole other layer to all this. Prosecutors are saying that Trump's constant pushing of Pence to overturn the election, that wasn't just political maneuvering. It was deeply, deeply personal.
Yeah, it really points to a breach of trust at the core of their relationship. Trump was pressuring Pence to violate the Constitution for his own gain.
It's crazy. And get this. The document actually breaks down Trump's activity on January 6th. Apparently, the FBI has detailed logs of his Twitter activity, the news he was watching, even what he was doing in the White House. It's like they're building a minute-by-minute account of his actions.
That's incredible. It's like forensic evidence from the digital age, right? They're not just reconstructing a timeline, but trying to get inside his head. What was he thinking and feeling in those critical moments?
It's wild. Okay, so this is where it gets really juicy. You remember Bill Barr, right? Trump's attorney general.
Yeah, the guy who publicly shut down Trump's claims of election fraud.
Exactly. And prosecutors are now saying Barr only decided to speak out after watching Trump spout those same lies on Fox News. Like, talk about a vote of no confidence from your own guy.
Wow. I mean, this was a turning point. Here you have someone who was probably in the best position to assess the situation, saying, no, this is wrong.
Totally. And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, there's this part where a staffer claims he warned Trump about Pence's safety during the riot, and Trump just replied, "So what?" I mean, seriously.
If true, that is chilling. It just shows this complete disregard for everyone around him, even his own VP.
It's insane. Okay, we just uncovered some seriously shocking stuff, but honestly, we've only scratched the surface of this 165-page document.
Yeah, we're just getting started. This next part is about what they're calling the fake elector plot, and let me tell you, it's a doozy.
Okay, fake elector plot. It does sound like something out of House of Cards or something. Break it down for me. What actually happened, and how does Smith connect this back to Trump?
So picture this. Trump's team is starting to realize all their legal challenges are going nowhere. So they come up with this plan to submit these like alternate slates of electors, basically, fake electors, to Congress in states that Trump lost.
Oh, already lost.
The goal was to create so much chaos and confusion that it would disrupt the certification of Biden's win.
Wow. So Smith is saying this wasn't just some crazy idea, right? This involved some of Trump's inner circle.
Oh, yeah, this was coordinated. Smith lays out how this whole plan involved lawyers, campaign officials, even some state GOP figures. This wasn't some rogue operation. This suggests a real effort to mess with the election.
And get this. Smith even highlights this one text message from a campaign staffer that's just wild. Apparently, when they found out a batch of votes leaned towards Biden, they texted, "Make them riot."
Yeah, if that's true, it speaks for itself. It goes way beyond just wanting to win. It suggests a deliberate attempt to incite violence.
This is insane. It's like something out of a movie. But are we seeing a pattern here? First, the tweets, now this. It all seems to point to intent.
Exactly. And going back to Bill Barr, who we talked about before, The indictment kind of suggests that he didn't just disagree with Trump. He felt like what Trump was saying was so dangerous that he had to say something publicly.
Which is a huge AE deal coming from your own attorney general.
For sure. It throws even more doubt on Trump's claims and really strengthens Smith's case that these were deliberate actions, not just misunderstandings about the election.
Okay, and this is where my jaw dropped. So we have that quote from Trump about Pence's safety during the riot, right? So what? If that's true, I mean, it really makes you wonder what was going through his head that day.
Right. It's a chilling thought. If Smith can convince a jury that all of this, the pressure on Pence, the fake electors, even the tweets, if he can convince them that this was all driven by ambition and disregard for democracy, it's going to be very hard for Trump to claim innocence.
Okay, so we've got this mountain of evidence, right? But this is all new territory. What are the biggest hurdles Smith faces in actually getting a conviction?
Honestly, the biggest one is proving criminal intent. We all know Trump is a master of plausible deniability. His lawyers will likely argue that he truly believed the election was stolen, even if his beliefs weren't based in reality.
So even if his actions were wrong, proving he knew they were wrong at the time is key.
Exactly. It's not enough to show that he made a mistake or should have known better. Smith has to prove to a jury, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Trump knew he was breaking the law and did it anyway. And that is a high bar.
It's like a whole other legal battle in itself.
Yeah.
Speaking of elections and their impact, let's shift gears for a minute to the recent vice presidential debate. So, our listeners are glued to this election cycle. And I have to say, that VP debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz,
Oh, man.
it was something else. I'm still processing it. It felt like watching two totally different realities clashing on stage.
Yeah, it was definitely more than just your average policy debate, right? You could really feel the deep division in American politics right now. Two candidates with two totally different ways of seeing the world.
Absolutely. Like there was that moment when Walz just straight up asked Vance if Trump lost in 2020. Oh, yeah, simple question. Right. But it felt like this huge test. Would Vance acknowledge reality or just stick to that whole stolen election narrative?
It was a smart move by Walz, honestly. I mean, no matter how Vance answered that, he was in a tough spot. It just shows you how much of a hold Trump still has on the GOP.
Seriously. Even though Trump wasn't actually there, you could feel his presence looming over the whole debate.
Yeah, that's the big question for Republicans now, isn't it? How do you appeal to Trump's base without alienating everyone else? It's a tough balancing act, and that debate really highlighted that.
It did. And the reactions afterward were all over the place, too. Some people thought Vance did surprisingly well, while others were like, nope, he's just another Trump guy. I'm really curious to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it was definitely a turning point in the race. Will it energize Trump's base? Or will it push away moderates? Too early to say for sure, but that debate's going to have ripple effects.
It makes you wonder, with everything we've talked about today, how do we even begin to bridge this massive divide in our country? I mean, if we can't even agree on basic facts, how can we have a real conversation, let alone find some common ground?
It's a huge question, and there's no easy answer. Part of it is definitely about, strengthening our information sources, teaching people how to be more media literate, encouraging critical thinking. But it also comes down to something more fundamental, being willing to listen to other points of view, even when it's hard.
It always comes back to communication.
Yeah.
We've got to get better at listening to each other, especially when we disagree. Well, wow, we have covered so much ground today, from this huge legal case to the election as a whole. Is there one key takeaway you hope our listeners are walking away with?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that democracy relies on a shared understanding of reality. And when that starts to break down, it undermines our institutions, it threatens our country. It's a scary thought, but we all need to face it head on.
Absolutely. This is a conversation we can't afford to ignore. And to our listeners, thank you for sticking with us through this deep dive. Stay curious, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time.